What is reality? Reality is what we believe to be true about the nature of our surroundings. But how do we come to decide that true nature? Do we conceive it completely on our own? Or do other devices gently sway our thoughts onto a pre-decided path? This is the hard question we must all ask ourselves as free humans on this planet. Who sculpts your reality?
Reality. Hey guys, what's up? It's Wednesday night. I'm Don.
I'm Dan, and we're back for another magical, fun-filled episode of Reality Brief. We're reaching out to you from the vast distances between the stars through the infinite network of hydrogen and mycelial particles that connect everything that exists.
Now would be a good time to pump the space Jesus, know what I mean? See if you
Definitely.
can remember how to do
But
that.
yeah, it's Wednesday night, and we've got a super special show for you guys tonight. We have Sue Walker of Sandia Crew coming on the show with us here in a little
You're
bit.
watching Reality Brief.
There it goes.
There he is.
Hey, thanks Jesus. Space Jesus.
Good Lord.
But before we get to our guests, we're going to start breaking in this new format here for you guys. So tonight we're going to keep it a little light. We'll probably have Sue come on about 10 after, 15 after, something like that. But
He's got an article he wants to
oh
get in.
my, this is something else.
It's a good one, too.
Actually,
I got a couple myself.
Let's do the other one. Switch it. It's the same thing. It's just from a little bit more reputable source,
So
I
what-
guess. Researchers create rat cyborgs that people control with their minds.
You know, I've always wanted that for Christmas. A little rat cyborg that I could control with my mind.
It's freaking ridiculous, man. I'll just come right out and say it. Scientists have created human-controlled rat cyborgs. Let that sink in for a minute. Lest you think this is some media sensationalism at work, here's the actual title of the paper under discussion, which came out last week in Scientific Reports. Human mind control rat of cyborg continuous locomotion with wireless brain-to-brain interface. That pretty much says it all. It sure does. Alright, so, ooh. How long you think they've been doing this to people already? Now they're saying, oh, look what we can do to the mouse. Poor little mouse. I mean, seriously, man.
Poor little bastard. Nobody deserves to be brain slaved. Not even a rat. Honestly, they should have tried this on lawyers first.
Some of this tech, such as brain-to-brain interfaces, BBIs, and rat cyborgs, is nothing new in science, but there's just a small step in an already existing race. But put another way, people are controlling rat cyborgs with their freaking brains now, wirelessly.
That's beyond the pale, man.
This is like 6 steps over synthetic telepathy.
Seriously, like this is like actual telepathy, like. And if they're if you're just now finding out that they can do this to rats, then MK Ultra's been doing this to people for probably 30 years. You know what I mean?
I thought you were gonna say that MK Ultra's been doing it to you, but no, it wasn't MK Ultra. It's Tavistock.
Oh yeah, or DARPA or any of those guys.
So here's the deal. According to this, what is the site? DiscoverMagazine.com blogs. BBIs are themselves based on stringing together other BMIs, or brain-machine interfaces. So it's like a controller area network for brains.
It's like a blockchain of telepathic fuckery.
These already exist. And present a cool way for people to control prosthetics or other devices. Right, I mean, you've seen, where people get a new arm put on and be able to control it with nerve signals from their existing brain, not a CPU.
Right, it can read your phantom limb signals and turn them back into actual limb signals.
Apparently, they can also function the other way around. Instead of a brain-controlling device, a machine can alter brain patterns or import tactile information back to the brain, as the study's authors put it. So BMIs allow for mechanically controlling other brains. So look, man, this is like total hive mind drone
I'm pretty
nightmare
sure
scenario, man. Because look, you've got a controller area network brain that, controls all the rat cyborgs. It's like the Borg, man.
Yeah.
We are the rats.
Open your fridge and surrender your cheese.
In effect,
your pantry will now adapt to service us.
In effect, it works like this. A human has movement-related thoughts, which an EEG picks up and transfers to a computer. The computer translates that signal into control instructions, which get wirelessly beamed into a stimulator on the back of the rat, and then into its brain via electrodes, which is, by the way, now a rat cyborg, because of its cybernetic parts. The rat then responds to the instructions by actually doing them. All this tech exists, but for some reason, very few previous studies have explored BBIs across actual experiment that involve humans wirelessly controlling rat cyborgs through mazes. I can't stress enough how real this is, or how often the authors use the phrase rat cyborg in their peer-reviewed scientific paper. I mean, just think about the implications of this for a second. Just stop and think about the implications of this. Are you done thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this since you started reading. Like I said, if they can do this to rats now, then they've been able to do it for people for 30 years.
Now they've been doing. They've been controlling. Weren't they doing this in MK Ultra?
I'm pretty
under
sure.
that umbrella thing, a long time ago already.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
But they weren't. So do the rats have like cyborg arms too? I wonder.
Are
the rats from the future?
No, these are probably present rats because they don't live very long. You know what I mean?
It's timeline A or B.
Time rats.
Time rats.
But no, I'm pretty sure I saw this on I think it might have been what's it? You know, the knockoffs of the Twilight Zone that are on channels like Comet and everything. What's it? It was some sci-fi Twilight Zone format show where the Outer Limits or something, where some guy had a cyber arm, and they hacked this guy's cyber arm in his sleep and it murdered his wife.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. And so then he gets charged with murdering his wife, but he didn't do it. It was a hacker that fucking hacked his cyber arm.
Well, they don't even have to hack your cyber arm now. They could just hack your brain and make your regular arm do it.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Wirelessly. Well,
digital.
Look, we gotta jump to a quick 5-10 second break here and get Sue on the line for you guys, and we will be right back.
Hey guys, it's the real Space Jesus here. None of that blue chicken bullshit. You're watching Reality Brief.
I'm not in a fucking cult. 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 I'm not in a fucking cult.
Hi there, it's Justin. Is there a band that you love and you wish you could turn everybody else in the world on to? That's us every week over at Deprogram. Get together, we talk about a band, we give you a top 10 starter kit for you and anybody else who wants to listen to that band. It's pretty simple, it's a great time, and it's a great way for you to discover new artists. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you can download.
Hey, we're back. What's going on, guys? We got Sue Walker and we really suck at this radio hosting. Go ahead and we got another guest. I don't even know his name, sir. What is your name?
I'm Reverend White Otter.
I'm sorry.
It's been a long week, I take it already.
Always a long week.
It's been a week
Hello from New Mexico. Sit back, relax. Let's just have fun. Let's talk. Chill out. It's okay.
So, Sue, tell us a little about yourself. How did you find out that, you were gifted?
Golly. From the time I was a very young kid. I was the different one. I was the one interested in, and at that point in time, I'll reveal my age. In 1969, I was in 4th grade following the space program, and no other girl that I knew was as interested in outer space as I was. I devoured everything I could in the science fiction department and all the classics, but it wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I realized that the images that I see in my head and had all of my life had any kind of validity or accuracy. I figured up until that point in time it was imagination. Both White Otter and I have been experiencers our whole lives since both of us were young. And so could that have contributed to things? Maybe, but I've been doing the clairvoyant and medical intuitive work, golly, for almost 30 years now. White Otter's been studying shamanism for 40 years. So between the two of us, we have almost 70 years of paranormal experience.
Wow.
That's awesome.
If it has to do with ghost busting, energy work, shamanism around the world, magical practice around the world, both positive and negative. Demons, strange things that go bump in the night that people don't understand, telepathy, multidimensional stuff. We've dealt with it one-on-one, firsthand. And you're just talking decades between what he knows and what I know. It's the unusual topic that we don't know about. And it's just years of getting the calls and going out and dealing with something new and being taught by other people who knew more than we did and seeking out those people. And so that was part of what drew Otter and I together. We've only been together since 2013. We met in 2012. And so it wasn't until I came to visit his home in Albuquerque for the first time in 2013. We had just started dating. And I wanted to come down and see how he lived. Never been to New Mexico before. Didn't know anything about the state except that it was the land of Roswell and Los Alamos and things like that there. But honestly, had never been here, and his home is a suburb of Albuquerque. That's where we're living right now. And so 10 miles west of the Sandia Mountain. Okay. The Sandia runs north-south on the eastern edge of Albuquerque. I was here less than 10 days, and we were sitting watching TV one night, and a voice that I had never heard before, that was not a ghost, was not a spirit, popped into my head and made a comment about something we were watching on television. And that was the first telepathic contact.
What were you watching? I was just curious.
It was one of the Got Talent shows. I think it was the final week of America's Got Talent.
Or American was Idol.
It was one of those two. It was something like that. It was September. It was very close to the fall equinox, if not the fall equinox itself. And I had just finished making a comment to Otter. That particular performer was very good. I think he should win. And this male voice popped into my head that said, I agree. He was good. I think he should win.
So was that the first time that you heard a voice that clear in your head like that, or like how?
It was the first time I had that kind of telepathic clarity that came with a distance, a direction, a destination, a feeling of male, a feeling of mature, and yes, not present in the room with me like you would if you interacted with the ghost of your great aunt Matilda.
Right. So was it just words or audio information, or was it?
It
was
was
there more
audio.
like...
It was audio, but it also, I knew exactly where it came from because my whole body picked itself up and turned around and stared out the picture window at one spot and one spot only on the Sandia Mountain. And I don't know how I knew. I just knew that that was the location of the voice. And it was such a weird thing, but so clear. I just kind of chalked it up as an anomaly. Well, a day or so later, I heard it again. And the third time I heard it, well, I figured I better say something to Otter. I mean, I'm visiting this guy's home for the first time, and here I am about ready to ask this guy, hey, Otter, you ever hear a voice coming from the mountain? I keep hearing this guy. And so,
was there a burning bush?
I didn't know he was going to put me on the train and send me straight back to Iowa. But your response, do you remember what you said to me?
I said, oh, them guys? Hear them all the time.
So you had known about them for a while. How long had you known about them?
Well, I moved in this house on October 1st of 2009, and by January 1st of 2010, I was very aware that there were telepathic entities attached to the mountain. Specifics was another issue, but I have been communicating with spirits for the last 40 years on a day-to-day basis.
It's part of shamanism.
Just like Sue has. So some of these voices are non-informative or not necessarily pertinent to what I'm asking about at that time. So I will kind of shield those voices off so that I can get clarity with who I'm connecting with.
So he'd been hearing them since he moved in, but they talk all the time, to be real honest.
Right.
And not everything is really important. It's just kind of like hearing somebody else's conversation in passing. But it was totally clear and so very different to me, not having ever experienced it before, that it got my attention. One time, I just kind of chalked it up as an anomaly. Second time, it was like, there's that voice again, what's going on? Third time, I checked with Otter, but then started doing some kind of backtracking, trying to interact with it. And that's what got things started, is we responded. We answered back. And we started to communicate. It wasn't for 2 months of talking to this voice. And at this point in time, I was going back and forth from Iowa to New Mexico because I still had a home up there. When I went to Iowa, I didn't hear the voice. When I came back to New Mexico, piped right up again.
So do you think it's the ability to make this contact is proximity-based, or is it non-local?
It was for me at the time.
At the beginning.
At the beginning, it was. And so I don't know if that was lack of experience and training my brain on my part. But when I came back to New Mexico and the voice continued to talk, and we gave the voice a nickname about 3 days in, and I'd gotten real tired of calling it the voice from the mountain because it sounded dumb, way too long. And so I gave it a nickname. It came from the Sandia Mountain, so I decided to call it Sandia, completely forgetting that in Spanish the word Sandia means watermelon. Okay. And so here I am giving this guy in the mountain the nickname of Watermelon. And as soon as I did that, he piped up. He'd been listening. Because I told Otter, hey, I think I'm going to call this thing Sandia.
We both heard him pop off.
And we both heard him say, Watermelon Head. That'll work. It was not the response I expected. He didn't cop to where he was from and what his real name was until late November. So 2 months later.
December. Well,
late November into December, somewhere in there. I'd have to go back to the journal. Yeah. We started to hear such unusual things from him. We started to journal because any one conversation gave you about this much, but by the time you added all these conversations together, you started to build a picture that, one, you weren't talking to somebody from here,
Right.
and two, you were talking to somebody who knew a lot more than you did about a whole lot of things. And so when I figured we'd talk like neighbors across the backyard fence long enough, I finally said one day, "Hey, Sandia, what's your real name and where you're from?" And he answered immediately, and he answered in detail. And he said, "My real name is Tookum." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Tookum." And I said, "What? Can you do that slower?" And so it took 4 tries before we got him slow enough to say Tilkum. And then he spelled it for me as Tlkm. And he said, immediately following that, our written language seldom uses vowels unless they are borrowed.
Makes you wonder if it helped inspire Hebrew.
I have no idea. And it makes me wonder if other star nations do not adopt that same system. He said in cultures with verbal languages, the vowels change faster than any other part of the spoken word. And we found a long time ago that people understood if you wrote it without the vowels anyway.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shorthand.
And even in like, you know, between British and, you know, and American English, like color with or without a U, you know, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so I said, "So where's home?" And he said, "Our home is the 5th planet orbiting the further of the 2 stars of the binary system you know as Zeta Reticuli." And I went, "That's pretty specific." He said, "Yes. There are 2 habitable worlds and several stations in our system. Ours is the 5th.
Were there always 2 habitable worlds, or did they start with one?
You know, I haven't gotten the full history on the Zeta Reticuli 2 star system. I've never had occasion to ask, to be honest. And so that's one of those, probably should find out. That's a good question.
Because, like, one of the biggest things about humanity's effort to get into space that blows my mind so much is the fact that we might have a chance to bring life to a world that doesn't have it now. You know what I mean? We might see a blue Mars and a blue Venus at some point in our species' future, and I think that would be pretty rad.
At some point in time, there are star nations out there who have figured out how to construct worlds, how to design worlds, how to terraform worlds, how to take the inhabitable and help speed up the habitable.
Especially if they're an expansionist species like us.
And a number of them are. A number of the exploring species look just like us, to be honest. Our physiological body type, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, and our proportions work and work well.
It stands to reason. Like anytime you would have an Earth-like world with, 1 millibar of pressure, atmosphere, 70% nitrogen, 20 oxygen, lots of water. Anytime you have that particular special blend of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, you're going to end up with something that looks a lot like us because, it's the same way any number of other chemical reactions anywhere else work the same way.
The DNA in this galaxy gets shared from system to system in all kinds of ways. And so whether it comes in on a comet, comes in on somebody's shoes, or comes in by design, or all of the above, we share genetics and plants and attributes in common with other star nations because there's an overlap. And in fact, one of the things that Tilcom told us very early on was that if you don't know another star nation by name, one of the common nicknames used is cousin when you greet them. So if you don't know their species, or you don't know them or how to call them by name, just about everybody accepts the fact that there's interrelatedness, and so the term cousin generically appears to be the accepted translation.
Because since it's all Milky Way life, at some point it comes from the same brew of amino acids.
Pretty much. Cousin in the Milky Way. That's right.
I dig that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty neat.
So, what's it? You mentioned on when we heard you guys on Spooky Action that they've been coming here for about 20 million years. But how long is their history? How far does that go back?
Well, okay. The P'nti actually have been out and exploring, according to their, not here, but just in the galaxy in general, about 16 million years. The Sasquatch have been around longer than that. But we asked Tilcom one day how far back their accurate records went on this world, and he gave us an exact number of years, but he said that in the first 50,000 years that the records were not completely all from P'nti missions. It was a mixture of information sources.
So what have they been doing here this whole time?
Well, I guess I would have to say, to be honest, there are a variety of reasons that the P'nti and other star nations are here. The people that we talked to in the Sandia Mountain are here because this facility, this mountain, has been an information station for terrestrial land-based Star Nation visitors for millennia. There are 4 land-based stations that are specifically information stations and 4 aquatic stations. And they've pointed out a lot of those locations specifically to us.
So,
but in general, the Zetas are here because they like to nurture life in all kinds of places and in all kinds of ways.
Let me ask you this. Are you aware of any other species from Zeta Reticuli?
I am aware that there are other cultures both in the Zeta Reticuli 1 and the Zeta Reticuli 2 systems, because Sandia has said that there is more than one habitable world in Zeta Reticuli 2's system by itself, plus several orbiting colonies that he intimated were constructed. Now, he didn't call them moons, he didn't call them satellites, he called them colonies.
Are you familiar with the Rendlesham event?
I am vaguely familiar with the idea that somewhere in the United Kingdom, next to a military facility, was a place called Rendlesham Forest, where a craft came down. I don't know if it was having malfunction or not, and an individual was shot. That's as much as I know. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But moreover, one of the people who originally investigated the craft got a flash of this binary code that he jotted down in his journal. And so you're familiar with that?
Now that you say that,
We've
yes,
seen a photograph or a picture of it.
that rings vague bells. We've not read it and not watched a video on it. I've just kind of heard this third hand. We're not real well read in this genre, so sometimes we ask dumb questions.
So no questions are dumb. So my point is, with that is, I'm sure you're familiar with Linda Moulton Howe. She's been around for a long time. Earth Files.
We do know her name, and she is also here in Albuquerque, although we've never met.
So a couple of years ago...
We need to come hang out with you guys.
Sure.
So a couple of years ago, she got some, unnamed contact that allegedly got a binary download, very similar to the Rendlesham account, right? And it was I trust her. What do you call it?
Journalistic integrity.
There you go. So I don't think that she would be, she was gonna vet any sources she gets. I feel like. So, but in this binary code, it was decoded and it was very similar to the one from Rendlesham. It was formatted almost the same way and everything, but it's got a different type of message, and it's basically a warning. It starts out, it says continuous protection of humanity. It gives coordinates, just like the Rendlesham thing. And it says expose hidden knowledge to all, citizens advancement imperative for planetary survival. Beware of Orion 1350.3 and Z Reticuli.
Z Reticuli 1.
Right. 39.1 avoid signal. That was the message in. I just wanted to bring that up. That's what I was asking about.
Right. Okay. So what I'm hearing is somebody gave a contactee a binary message that translated to, heads up, you guys don't know the backstory of everybody in the galaxy, and here's some of the guys that you need to keep your eyes on.
Pretty much.
By the way, if you get a message from these guys, don't respond.
Right.
There's also part in there about getting more society getting wiser.
Right, at the beginning
which
of
has to do with part of what the P'nti here in Sandia are doing is coaching this world into advanced civilization 0. We're in a negative position as far as advanced civilizations go and are recognized today.
Yeah, we're not up to level 0 yet.
Per the Galactic Standard?
Yes. And we don't know the exactness of the Galactic Standard except what Sandia has said about if you provide potable water or drinking water, food, clothing if it's appropriate for the species, and shelter for 100% of your top population. In other words, if you intentionally take care of your own people and you also care for the world in which you live and make efforts to live within balance in that world, that's advanced civilization level 0 according to the P'nti. I think Stephen Greer calls that
Type
level 1.
Yeah,
same thing.
The Kardashev scale.
Right, and so we got our numbers from the P'nti. I don't know where he got his numbers. It doesn't matter. We're talking about the same thing. It's you take care of your people, you take care of the place where you live. Then maybe you're mature enough to go out and explore the rest of the galaxy.
Maybe they could drop us, food replicator tech that, that sure would come in handy. I wanted to ask, what is the economics of a civilization that's been around for 16 million years like?
Well, when you have to trade and acquire goods and services from a variety of worlds at various levels of advancement, you have to be able to trade on a basis that meets that world's needs. And so back home everything is taken care of, but when you go out into the galaxy and have to interact with other nations, there's commerce involved.
Sure.
And because you have to find some kind of a common ground of trade. And that's the reason.
So I know it's I've heard that at some point we humans are used for trade by some of the more malicious species in the galaxy, like the Dracos. Apparently, human adrenochrome is one of the hottest drugs in the galaxy, and we just produce boatloads of it.
I haven't gotten any confirmation on that from the P'nti specifically at all. We have heard from them that we need to be very, very careful about lumping prejudicially everybody into one category. Just like people think that there's only one nation that looks like they have large heads, large dark almond-shaped eyes, skinny bodies, and fewer fingers than us, when in fact there's at least 5 different nations. You don't have visitors, do you?
No, it's just the crew.
Yeah,
okay.
just the show.
They're just goofing off back there.
We've been on air with other talk show hosts, and they're on air in the studio. They begin to have interaction, which is why I asked the question.
Sorry about that. Quit it, Westman. Stop making noises over there.
It was me.
I have a question. Do they have any type of governing bodies that they're part of or answer to, for what they're doing here? And you said they're kind of it's an information station for several different, what did you call it, star nations? So
yeah.
Is there some type of, authority or governing body involved in this?
And where do we fit on the galactic hierarchy of things?
Yeah, well, we're
not on there. We're definitely not on there at all.
Currently, what they tell us is Earth is in what they refer to as protected planet status. All right.
So I guess what my question is, who does the protection? Like, whose call is it that Earth is protected planet status? Like,
there is a governing group, and I confess we do not know the official translation of the name of that governing group. Is it a council? Is it a federation? Loosely translated, the P'nti refer to them as the protectors right now, the protecting or governing those who make sure to keep out the riffraff who want to take advantage of those of us who are on the edge of exploring technology, leaving our home world. Okay. And so that governing body began with 7 members. As far as I know, those 7 members joined together when the last disaster happened here.
Okay, which would be?
If I ask specifically about that, they take us back about 13,500 years.
So we're talking about flood time.
The fall of the Rama Empire.
You are talking before Rome got going.
Mm-hmm.
No, Rama.
Okay, Rama. Pardon me. Yes, you're talking about the time frame where the folks with the elongated skulls were all over Egypt and Samaria. Okay, our P'nti friends called those individuals with the elongated skulls the Ea, E-A.
Okay.
All right, and the Ea come from several places right now, but do come or originally came from the Orion constellation area and are all over that section of the galaxy now. You can find Ea of various heights and sizes, from very, very tall, as in more than 20 feet, to our height. Okay. But that group, or a sect of that group, apparently got caught doing something they weren't supposed to. And there was an interstellar conflict within our atmosphere, and loss of life and destruction, along with some environmental crap.
Were the P'nti involved in that conflict?
No, they were involved with the rescue.
So this Ea, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Okay. Would that be what people would call the Anunnaki?
Yes.
Possibly, yeah.
Correct. They do tell us that there were also another group with elongated skulls that technically would be considered Ea, but not Anunnaki, in South America.
Okay. So that if that's Enlil and Enki, so which one it was I think it was, I can't remember. I always get them confused. One was in South America and one was based around Egypt.
Well, and here's here's the other unusual thing is if you go back to the oldest Pueblo translations of what they call the Sandia Mountain, it translates to the people, or where the old people of Anu used to live.
Right on.
So Anunnaki, Anu, and then they have their translated word for this. The P'nti call the Sandia Mountain. They tell us the old name translated to Accord Mountain. Accord as in place of meeting to come to agreement. And they say that it has a reputation of people coming together. Oh, I don't know if UN would be fair. That seems too highfalutin. The place that people came together and resolved a conflict.
Like a
meeting
like a
spot.
summit.
Yeah, right. Like a summit location. Correct.
Something
Correct.
neutral.
Right. And that's when the Ia were kind of kicked off planet
Now,
and have been gone for a while.
So there's none left on the planet.
No, they actually came back into the star system June of 17
Okay.
and were announced. No kidding. The P'nti told us specifically when they arrived. And it would have been really close to the summer solstice of 17.
Right in that 3 or 4 day
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, Rudy actually contacted me specifically and said, would you type this exactly? And she got real formal. Took us by surprise. They tell us all kinds of things behind the scenes.
Must be pretty interesting.
It is. It's a hoot.
Are you aware of any treaties that the P'nti may have with any government bodies on Earth?
I know that there is a signed treaty that goes back, and in fact, it comes across when Tilcom thinks about it, almost like it's 2 parts. Almost like I have part 1 back in the 50s and part 2 back in 1971. I don't know why. When he thinks about it, it comes across that way. I do know that there is a signed agreement asking for X number of years, and it was a round figure in decades.
What was that? I'm sorry.
That was not at our end.
No, it was. It's the crew again. Wishman! What are you doing?
What do you got, a Labrador back there running that control panel?
Yeah, he does a better job than I do, though, honestly, that Labrador.
So, the signed treaty talked about no photos, no videos, no electronic evidence, no sharing of technology with the public, yada, yada, yada. There were some specifics, and whoever signed this part 2, if I want to call it that, asked specifically for time to emotionally prep.
So what did the P'nti get out of it?
What do they get out of it?
Yeah, what did they get out of the treaty? We got, apparently, going by what you're saying, we got, control over technology, because I would assume that there would have been some type of technology exchange between the government, because you said
I
public.
have no idea.
They won't admit to any of that.
Yeah, and you know what? They've never specified what they got out of it or what their end of it was. And we've never asked, to be very honest.
You don't find that a little bit suspicious?
Well, no, I'm not saying... there are things that we avoid talking to them about, because when they speak of it initially, you can tell it's a guarded subject, so we don't push. So we let a lot of things come out in generic conversation. But have you had any conversations?
They're not allowed to come off of, too. I mean,
well, I don't know. Have you ever had conversations with any of the gang about the treaty more than what I know?
No, because that all my conversations with them in regards to that have been specifically about technology information, and it's like they didn't get any technology information from what they didn't already have in Area 51.
Okay. So sorry, I don't know more than that at this point in time.
well, we were talking about the conflict that was going here on Earth that they were part of the rescue efforts of.
Yeah.
But have they ever... I mean, 16 million years is a long time. I'm sure they've had conflicts with other species before.
Oh, I'm sure that they have.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Have they
sure
ever-
that they have let us know that there is a huge backstory in this galaxy that they need to catch us up to speed with, that involves humans that look like us, folks that look more like they do, individuals who have Sauron, as in amphibian-like heritage, folks
Like
that have
Like Anderson Cooper.
reptilian or reptarian heritage, individuals that are invertebrate, sentient nations, whether they reside at deep pressures, like in the oceans, or deep space, as in vacuums. I mean, I don't even know where to start with all the information that they've told us.
Have they ever had to go to war with another species that resulted in, I assume they would have found, they seem like peaceful guys, so I would assume they would have found a peaceful solution to those conflicts at some point.
Well, the advantage is if you're a telepathic nation, one, you make friends with people and you already know the intent behind what they're wanting to do. That helps. And two, Jedi mind tricks work, for lack of a better way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Can they mentally control individuals if they wish to? Yeah. Absolutely they can.
I don't know if you guys tuned in before you came on, but what we were talking about was some experiments involving mice wired up with cybernetic parts that people were controlling through a maze with their brains.
Wow.
Synthetic telepathy on roids.
Yeah, not good on the brain.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure
not
it wasn't
pleasant for the mouse either, I'm sure.
No, I'm sure not. I'm sure not.
It's been assimilated.
Yeah.
So, did they ever, when the P'nti were still in there, before they left their home world, and they were still roughly where we are in our stage of technological development, did they ever irradiate their own planet?
Not that I am aware of.
Good. That's
because what they tell us is by the time they were ready for their official first contact, they were already a telepathic nation, and the nation that came to their world was also a telepathic nation. So you got one telepathic nation able to read another telepathic nation going, oh, hey, oh, you want to come visit? Okay. It basically was it when you have telepathic nations or telepathic sentient species of any kind, contact is much easier than if you do not.
So, for those of, I'm sure they've communicated with other civilizations that aren't telepathic as well. Does being telepathic mean that you don't, have they still taken the time and effort to, or have they developed the technology to do quantum communications across great distances with no interruptions? Or is it just not necessary if you're telepathic?
Well, you have to be able to do both because you're interacting with other stellar nations who are not telepathic, and you need that backup. Okay? Sometimes you need hard copy, all right? That's the best way to say it. And so, do they have a variety of means of communication across vast distances? Yeah, telepathy is the easiest and the most informal, but sometimes you have to have other kinds of technology as well.
Now, I would always assume, you've heard of the Fermi paradox, right?
Nope. Don't know what that is.
It's the whole idea of, if aliens are all over the galaxy, then where are they, and why don't we pick up their radio signals? Basically, the long and short of it, like, if they're out there, then how come we don't hear them?
Well, okay, and so the real question is, if they're out there, how come we're only listening on radio and not going across the spectrum of vibrational frequency from one end to the other looking? And are you assuming that that's in our dimension or not? Okay, so there's a whole variety of, I think that they have answered back. I think that they are there. I think that we have photographs. I think we have evidence. I think we have a lot of it. But I don't think it's been made public to us, thus the paradox.
Have you ever physically met a P'nti?
Yeah. Both of us have. Right here at the house.
Okay.
I also met them in 1998. I also met them when I was a young child, age 6.
1964.
In person, in front of me, touchable.
Did you have to have any of that memory recovered? Because I've heard a few other stories about them erasing memories.
Well, first of all, your memories aren't erased. They're just stored like your dreams are.
The connections are broken.
The connections are like your dreams are. Okay, hard to recall. The memories are there. You have to, the access pathway is. But no, all of my memories are conscious memories.
Yeah, I've never been regressed.
Never needed to.
Okay.
So, I was curious, what sort of beings did the P'nti originally evolve from? Did they evolve from primate-like mammals like us, or?
The image that I get looks more like a lemur than it does like a monkey.
Okay. But
very large eyes, very nocturnal sense, very delicate fingers. Mm-hmm. Originally had fur, originally arboreal.
So not too different from us.
No, not too much. Right.
So these guys have been here 16 million years.
No, they have been exploring the galaxy for 16 million years. They've got accurate records here less than 200,000 years.
Okay, so they've been here less than 200,000 years.
Correct.
Do currently, do they work in shifts, or are they born here and then live their whole life here, or they come here when they're 22 or something, or how long are they lived for one?
Well, okay, average lifespan is about 450 with good health. Most of them, I guess, Raider was born in 1965, and he's considered a teenager. All right.
He's a 50-year-old motorhead.
Yeah, basically, if I think in terms of are they born here, no. Most of them transfer in because we meet a lot of individuals who have never been on the planet before ever and did their training in order to come here for several years before transferring to the Sandia Mountain Information Station. So, as far as I am aware, the P'nti transfer in.
Okay. So it's not like a colony per se, they're not.
Well, they stay a long time.
Right.
The folks that are in the information station now all agreed to come specifically because we're approaching our official first contact, and because our world is going through some pretty dramatic environmental changes. And so they've got crews observing both.
What can you tell me about this information station? What purpose does it serve? I know you said that other star nations go there, but what do they go there for? What do they need information on?
Okay, so let's say that you've got 5 different facilities that are Sauron in North America. And you've got a Sauron crew that's coming in and trying to figure out where their people are, or what's going on where, or what are the politics, or what's the check-in procedure, or what's the latest on the information status of the technology of the Earth humans. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of things that if you're a visiting star nation, it's good to know. Also, it's a facility that can acclimatize to a variety of environmental and atmospheric conditions, whether that's an oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide mix, whether that's an atmospheric pressure mix, whether that's we got to get you used to all the stuff that's going on here first and acclimatize you to their water, their gravity, their Schumann resonance, whatever it is. There is an extensive tunnel system under the Sandia Mountain. Huge. Part of it is the ancient tunnel system. Part of it is the modern tunnel system. It was the ancient tunnel system that was retrofitted and can house several hundred. Normally they don't have that many here, but does it have facilities? Is there a medical facility? Is there a hangar bay? Is there common area? Yes.
Does it connect to Dulce?
Yes. In some ways, the ancient tunnel system that runs north-south along the eastern edge of the Rockies has chutes or side branches. And one of those used to connect to Dulce. That was the first one that I think that got added onto by us. Now Dulce connects all the way over to Groom Lake, as far as I know.
Well, who is the guy that, his name evades me right now, but the gentleman that...
Phil Schneider.
Yeah, Phil Schneider. When that incident happened, were any P'nti harmed?
Well, first of all, I don't know that I would assume that it's P'nti, because the Dulce base is not a P'nti base.
Oh, that's why I'm asking.
Right, no, Dulce is not a P'nti base as far as I know. Archuleta Mesa...
that's a research and
that was a research facility,
and development.
But mostly you'll find our folks there.
But the stories we've gotten from people who have had experiences with Dulce say there's hybrids in there.
Right, but I'm not sure that they're P'nti.
No, I don't think they're P'nti.
Okay, so are there underground facilities all over New Mexico and Arizona, almost everywhere you turn? It seems.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're all over the world, really.
Yeah, right. So that area has been known for quite a bit of unusual activity, both on the surface as well as underground.
Well, I'm sure there's a deep underground military base network that connects everything around here too.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, well, where you
Montauk.
are, yeah, I would expect.
No doubt. So these P'nti are manning this information station for these 7 star nations. I mean, it's more than that, right?
It's more than that. They say on any given day, between the aquatic nations and the terrestrial nations, 75 to 80 separate star nations can be found on this world.
Okay, so my question is, what are they doing here? Why are they keep 70,
most of them
80?
Most of them come because we're a water world.
Okay.
75% of our planet is water. Almost 75% of them come to visit our oceans.
So, I mean, do the P'nti have... Are the P'nti... You said there was 4 other information stations across the planet?
There's 4 terrestrial and 4 aquatic.
Okay, 4 terrestrial and 4 aquatic.
Right.
Now,
one of the aquatic ones is off of Tasmania. You've got a friend that you've interviewed, Wookie. He lives very close to the entrance to the Tasmania Sea Base.
Nice. I remember you telling him about how when Telcom goes for a vacation, he'll go to the Great Barrier Reef and talk to whales.
Yeah, he's really very sad about what's going on with the dying off of the Great Barrier Reef. He's watching it happen since he's even arrived here. I mean, he said it's bad.
I can tell you, right here in the Chesapeake Bay, the military and the EPA have been at odds with each other about releasing the truth about the actual water quality here for a long time. And between the Navy base and the shipyard and Oceana.
Don't eat any rockfish.
Yeah, don't eat any rockfish.
I don't eat anything that comes out of the water here, period. Like, I'm that squirrely about it. Maybe if it's caught off the coast of Hatteras, we might be able to play ball, but...
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we're the same way about fish coming out of the Rio Grande.
Yeah, don't blame you.
So these other information stations, are they manned by P'nti or is it different star nations?
These are specifically the P'nti information stations. That doesn't mean that there aren't any other Star Nation information stations, like for Reptarans or Saurons or something else.
Pleiadians.
It depends, but you... Just like we do, you tend to gravitate to find information about a new world from your own people because you understand their perspective and their research more than a stranger's. And so, are there other Star Nation facilities, research stations, and other on our world? Yeah.
Now, is there any... I take it there's no sort of prime directive... You know how in Star Trek you have the prime directive that keeps you from interacting with less advanced species that haven't achieved a certain level. Galaxy-wide, is there any sort of prime directive that everybody at large sort of follows, or is it flexible?
There is well, no. There are universal laws and norms that if a visiting star nation were to cross the line, would they get called on it? Yes. There is also mission protocol that the P'nti have, and I honestly think a number of star nations adopt it. And the mission protocol is real simple. And it's cause no fear, do no harm, leave no trace. And so that said, when they want to come visit you or you want to invite them to come visit you, then they would do everything they could to not cause you to be afraid, not hurt you, and really not leave any evidence behind if they can help it.
Well, and I have seen my fair share of evidence that people have left behind. I think I myself might have a microchip in my left shoulder. I'm not sure, but I've definitely seen evidence of all sorts of things that have happened to people that are not good, and so it's it's nice to
we've
hear that
seen evidence of
cares.
Yeah, we've seen evidence that the P'nti have been at people's homes, because after they go visit you more than once, and you become a regular contactee with them, do they become a little bit more lax? Yeah, they do. They let down their guard. Our friend Kevin Estrella up in the Toronto, Canada area is waking up to red soil in his bed sheets. And there's no red soil where he lives in Ontario. He'll go to bed, clean his feet, put new sheets on his bed, and wake up to red sand in his bed.
Whoa.
He's collected samples time after time.
Yeah, we actually had him on the show.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right. So our friend Jason in Florida is waking up with a splotch of something on his hand that reminds you of tan paint or caulk. It takes him a little bit to scrape it off. It's always in the same spot. He'll go to bed, no mark in his hand, wake up, mark in his hand. So now he's taking photographs, and Jason also has probably more video evidence of various kinds of craft over his home than a lot of the other regular contactees of the P'nti do. The kind of evidence people gather depends on what they find and what their level of expertise is. These guys aren't trained in forensics. But if they go out into the backyard and, geez, there's a crop circle swirled into the grass, they're going to get out their camera and try and take a picture even if they're not really good at it. They're going to do what they can. And so what we're finding is the number of people having things moved, catching voices, hearing interactions, seeing movement in their homes, videotaping craft outside of their homes, having telepathic visits from other star nations. The list is getting bigger all the time, and right now we've got more than a dozen countries involved of people who are contacting us and saying, I did what you said. I followed Tini's advice in the Telepathy 101 primer. Oh, by the way, that's that on officialfirstcontact.com. One of Commander Teokum's staff members, a little petite gal by the name of Tini. She's so little we call her Teeny. But Teeny spent 2 months dictating to us the first Telepathy 101 course that then we tweaked a little more with her that became the Telepathy 101 primer that you see online. And they asked for that to be published so that everybody could understand what to expect from their telepathic communication, so that when that crystal clear voice pops into your head in the middle of watching America's Got Talent, that you freak out and that you go, oh, that's a response to my telepathic invitation. Hello. Okay.
Very cool. Well, I'll probably be watching Discovery or Orville, but they're totally welcome to contact me.
So,
Good.
we're going to go ahead and hit that top of the hour break. So you
Sounds
guys
all
can
right.
stretch your legs, get a drink, whatever you need to do. It'll be about 10 minutes. And you guys out there watching, I'd like to open it up the floor for some questions if anybody's got any questions. I can't open the phones because something's wrong with Skype. Every time I do, Skype disappears. And I'm not going through it again this week.
Yeah, our communications array is not functioning properly. However, we are taking questions from the YouTube chat. You can email them to us, realitybrief@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Facebook. We're there.
Now, Radar, if you're listening, you want to fix Skype for us? We can take some calls there.
Definitely use a tech boost. There's got to be a way of doing it that won't break.
I'm seeing somebody over on the desk going like this, they're in Norfolk, right? How long what do we got left in the hangar bay?
Yeah.
I mean, be careful what you wish for. Be careful.
Well, he doesn't have to come here to fix Skype. He has to go to Skype.
That's no fun.
All right, well, we'll
see you after the break. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Hey guys, it's the real Space Jesus here. None of that blue chicken bullshit. You're watching Reality Brief.
I'm not in a fucking cult. 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 I'm not in a fucking cult.
Hi there, it's Justin. Is there a band that you love and you wish you could turn everybody else in the world on to? That's us every week over at Deprogram. Get together, we talk about a band, we give you a top 10 starter kit for you and anybody else who wants to listen to that band. It's pretty simple, it's a great time, and it's a great way for you to discover new artists. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you can download your fine podcasts. That's Deprogram, learning and loving people.
After the break, how to survive an encounter with a telepathic spider.
And is your neighbor involved in black operative mind crime? Ways to find out.
Find out on Reality Brief. Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now? Can you hear me now?
I disagree.
Well, that's why you're wrong.
So wait, we just accidentally streamed that?
Mm-hmm.
So the entire world saw that?
Mm-hmm. Can you hear me now? Hello?
What? Transporter room. I need you to need a site-to-site transport directly onto the toilet. We've only got 10 minutes for this break.
Man, I told you to speak into the microphone.
Blue chickens. Look, they're gonna be moving into your neighborhood. They're gonna be passing your laws. They're gonna be teaching your kids. You know.
God, I'm so fucking hungry, man. I haven't eaten dinner yet. Hello? I don't know if it's working, Dan.
It probably isn't.
Shit, man. Shit.
Why don't you just get the goddamn Google machine to fix it, huh?
Fuck. Hello? Whoa. What do you mean it's on fire? What? Get a text. Is it them?
Shit!
Go.
Hey, buddy. Want to buy some memes? This one's banned in the EU. Only $10 for the dank ones.
Oh hi, Space Jesus again. If you're looking for a little redemption, hop on over to patreon.com/realitybrief or redbubble.com/people/realitybrief and think about giving a little something to that cause. Why donate to the pot and church when you can donate to some pot instead?
Give us a countdown.
Zing bong, we
Hey.
are back. Welcome to hour 2 of the broadcast. I'm Don.
I'm Dan, and we are back here in the studio with Sue Walker and White Otter, and we are talking about
Reverend White Otter. Actually, I got a question for the Reverend. The name, how did you, what new? Where did you get the name from? Like, what does it mean?
Well, when you get back into indigenous cultures and you start studying some of their beliefs, I was born under the sign of the popping tree in the year of the otter. So subsequently, I've been called Otter for a long time. I'm almost 70 years old now and have silver hair, so White Otter.
Ah, okay. I knew it had to be something. I was like, he wasn't born with that name.
So, I guess we could lead with a question from the chat. Somebody asks, let's see, what can you tell us about the Zuni encounter with the Kachina?
The Zuni encounter? Which one?
Which Kachina?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There are a lot of
Jared,
Kachinas.
does that mean anything to you?
Okay. All right.
Jared's talking about
okay,
Shalako.
now I understand.
Shalako.
He's talking about Shalako, and he's also talking about the two Kachinas from the Sandia Mountain.
Right,
The white-faced one and the black-faced one.
right.
Okay. So what we can tell you is that in having some conversations with our friend Clifford Mahuti, we have learned that the local Pueblo peoples knew of the Sandia Mountain Station and the extraterrestrials that resided there and have known since they've been here. And it was extraterrestrial star nations that led the Zuni originally, after the last big flood event, up the Colorado,
The rescue.
up the Little Colorado, and from the Little Colorado over to the present Zuni Pueblo sacred land. When they arrived with the Star Nations, and it was the Ant people and the Spider people
Right.
in their pantheon that led them on this journey from the Pacific up those rivers to their present location. When they got there, the Pueblo was already constructed for them.
So, and this is like along the same lines as the Anasazi.
They refer to the Anasazi as the ancient ones that were before them, before the last big flood event, before the Ant people and the Spider people rescued them.
Okay.
Now, is the Ant people or the Spider people, are those references to, insectoid people from other star nations? Like the Mantids, for instance?
You'd have to ask Clifford that one.
Okay.
We haven't gotten all of the story, and I wouldn't want to tell it to you wrong. If there's a world expert on it, it would be Clifford Mahuti.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, another question from the chat from the same fella. Have the P'nti mentioned anything about life on other planets in our solar system?
Yes.
Yeah.
They've talked about underground facilities on Mars. They've talked about under ice facilities on one of the moons of the farther out planets.
Europa or Enceladus?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because I've got several moon bases from those giant planets, both Saturn and Jupiter, in my head when I think about where they go or where they know of stations out farther in our system. So I guess I would have to say Europa is one, Ganymede is one, because I keep seeing those images in my head.
Ganymede's practically a planet. It's bigger than Mercury.
I know it. And I think Titan
Yeah, I know.
is the other one.
We've definitely heard about Nachtwaffen facilities at Ganymede, Titan, and Ceres.
Interesting.
And I know there's a Solar Warden presence out there too, which made me want.
I would agree with that. That would.
What's the
make sense.
back and forth between the P'nti and other factions like Nachtwaffen and Solar Warden from here in our own system?
Boy, cautionary is the only thing that they will share with us. Almost as if they refer to it as a delicate dance, because it's not just the P'nti, and it's not just Earth-human factions. It's factions that have a history and backstory from other nations visiting this water world.
Like the Pleiadians and the Procyon.
Yes, you're right. So we've got other aquatic nations that come here specifically only to interact with our aquatic nations.
So they're just coming here to talk to our dolphins and whales and
No,
such.
it's more than that. The invertebrates in the deep ocean are also being interacted with, and I was not aware of that until
you mean like giant,
weeks ago.
Like octopus and squid?
Okay, octopus are intelligent, but they were referring to something that looked for all the world like a giant jellyfish that was 30 feet across.
Pyrosomes.
That could. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
It's the image, and I don't know the nation or the species, but the image is of an animal that can change or morph its own external structure.
Yeah, they can
Okay.
kind of shapeshift.
Is that
Yes, kind of shapeshift into what form they want, but they also light up. There's a light language
Yeah, they're
that's very
bioluminescent.
complex and yes. So the interaction with those nations.
Which is where they get the pyro in their names from, the pyrosomes, because they glow.
Okay.
I need
Okay,
to
that
go
makes
back
sense.
and listen to that interview we did with Will. So remember he talked about some recall he had of some type of mission, and there was he described something very similar to what you're just describing.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Who is this?
Will Glover.
Okay.
Not familiar.
Yeah. I mean, it's not directly related. I don't think it could be different, but it was about a year ago or something when we interviewed him.
They tell us that there are deep space, or I'm not going to say deep space, wrong word, interplanetary niche species that live in the vacuum of space that also have this ability to morph
metamorphic
and
ability.
strobe with a light language, like the deep ocean species. But here's the weird twist. It's almost as if I'm strobing at the edge of our light ability to perceive with our eyes, going into a spectrum we can't see. But what I don't
UV or
know...
infrared.
I don't know, or both.
It's a bioluminescence.
But what I don't know is that nation a multi-dimensional? Are we seeing a phasic shift that's only light spectrum, or are we seeing a phasic shift that's more than that? And I don't have the answers to that. All I have is images about discussions we've had with the P'nti.
Okay, so I do have another question coming in from a message. They want to know, do they partake in like Earth-like vices like drugs and alcohol? The P'nti.
The P'nti don't drink. I won't say that radar isn't above a little chokeweed now and again. All right.
Nice.
Well,
Yep. But
It gets around Kie.
yeah, no, the Sasquatch. Our Sasquatch friends tell us they understand the usage of marijuana and other herbal substances, and actively use them as a medicine. We got told that by the Sasquatch themselves.
Are they impressed by Earthweed?
Speaking of Sasquatch,
It depends.
the Colorado ones are.
It explains
Why don't you
all
tell
the,
us a little bit
it
about-
explains the UFO activity over Mount Shasta.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your Sasquatch experiences?
We didn't start getting into that until the P'nti at the end of the summer of 16 asked us to take the first Telepathy 101 course up to the Psychic Sasquatch Conference specifically. And so we did that Labor Day and got a chance to talk with researchers and hear firsthand stories we'd never heard. But the other thing is we took our camper up with us, and starting night 1 began to get physical interaction with them.
Oh, wow.
And so that first year it was
pinging agate stones off the side of the trailer and the diesel tank for the school's heating system. Bing, 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 half the night long, bouncing stones.
Yeah,
off our trailer.
they were tossing pebbles at us. We'd just start to drift off again, and there would come another one. The second year, we had interaction down at our trailer in person from 2 feet away,
wow.
as in one of the paranormal photographers, Darrell Stokes, and I were sharing pictures that he had just finished taking, and he was sitting next to me in a camp chair. It was about 10:30 at night, and he was flipping through photos that he had taken 2 minutes before.
Thousands of orbs.
And so we were talking about them, and suddenly, between the two of us, comes this huge presence. The hair on the back of both of our arms stood up, and both of us just simultaneously kind of turned like this and went, "Oh, hello, you want to see too, don't you?" And so that's exactly what we did. We held it up to whoever was standing between and behind us could see.
Until he touched the camera.
Well, and then we asked him, would you like your picture taken? Because we didn't know if we were going to get lucky. And if you would like your picture taken, let's go out farther where everybody's got more room. Darrell stood up, I stood up. He took one step, this Sasquatch brushed against him, and the batteries went instantly.
Wow. So their biomagnetic field must be something else.
Well, the next year, Darrell went through all of the batteries he brought, all of the rechargeables he brought, and 26 of our AA batteries in 4 days.
Wow.
Just himself. And that doesn't
makes sense
include everybody else's, interactions. But we've had some physical right there in your face.
Sasquatch can step through dimensions, can't they?
Yes, they can.
Yes. We don't know if all the nations can, but we sure know that some of them can.
That's an amazing ability. And it kind of ties in with the next question I wanted to ask you guys. Tying back to what the guy just asked about, do they, their use of other chemicals to alter their consciousness. Mm-hmm. I've heard that a lot of stuff that's in fiction and sci-fi is actually kind of soft disclosure. It's a lot of stuff that a little nugget of truth that somebody wants to let dribble out. And in the most recent season of Star Trek, they've had this big interaction between this thing that they call the mycelial network.
Okay.
It's a network of spores of life, basically, that goes throughout the entire universe, connecting galaxies like strands of kelp. And so the human, the humans eating psilocybin mushrooms allow us to tap into this network, into this mycelial network.
And eat a lot, though.
Yeah, and they gotta be good ones. But it makes me wonder if this thing in Star Trek coming out if there's not some connection to the ability to at least through your consciousness traverse this mycelial network and make contact with other civilizations. And does that tie into is that really a thing in y'all's experience, or does it tie into telepathy and the ability to interpret information through psychic means between biological organisms?
I think a little bit of all of the above, to be honest. All right. So what we know is the microcosm matches the macrocosm. Okay.
As above, so below.
If you look underneath the ground, the mycelial connectivity and the assist that mycelium have with the plant world, and the symbiosis, the give and take of energy, that exchange keeps everything in balance. If we look at our physical bodies, you're made of connective tissue. If you take a piece of raw chicken, you've seen the white stringy stuff? All right.
Yeah.
That connective tissue you have all through your body, forming a net that kind of holds everything into place. Okay. But that connective tissue, that fascia is what we call it, transmits light and information we are learning through medicine just within the last 2 years, 3 years tops, about the information network of the fascia of the body. So again, that interconnected mycelial net-like looking network of information is below our ground, is in our bodies. It stands to reason to me that it's out in the universe as well, and it makes perfect sense that there is something cohesive about what you're talking about. Do we as Earth humans need something like mushrooms in order to access that?
Well,
you can train yourself to not, but shamanic practices all over the planet have used a whole variety of different substances in order to open up their minds to connect that way historically in all cultures on all continents.
And it makes me wonder, did psychoactive substances help play a role in the P'nti's evolution as well as our own?
Not that they have told us. They have focused more on the information sharing and the learning that came with the telepathic connections more than any psychoactive connections. Almost like they didn't need it at the time.
So no shroom tea parties.
Not tonight, not that we know of, no.
We got another question from the chat back on Sasquatches. They're wondering how many nations of Sasquatches there are, or I guess different subspecies or species.
The P'nti have told us there are 7 separate and distinct nations that would be subspecies of one another here on Earth. That doesn't mean you couldn't get another one visiting from somewhere else.
Okay.
But actively here, if you go through all the continents that support our Big Brother friends, you'll find 7 distinctly different body types for sure.
Okay.
What's it? So, I think it was, wasn't it Asimov who said that any significantly advanced technology would appear to be magic? And it made me wonder, with the P'nti, did they ever have a system of magic that you know of? Or, how long ago did their magic and technology fuse into one discipline?
Boy, that's a fair question, because I would have to say you'd have to go back to shortly after they began interacting with other star nations who had that capacity to explain more the interaction between consciousness, energy work, manifestation, galaxy designers, world designers, the elemental, they had to have that whole system of how does the behind the scenes hardware of the universe work.
What makes
and what all is involved with that had to be explained to them, and we've only got bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, we've just dipped our toes in the ocean.
Just barely, and some of the exploration that we hear of being done gives us pause as to how dangerous it is or isn't. The P'nti say, be sure you know how to close the door fully.
Fair enough.
Before you even open it.
Yeah.
Make sure you practice your banishings before your summonings.
Kinda, yeah. Same idea.
Did they have any thoughts about Edgar Cayce or the Edgar Cayce Institute, which we actually happen to be right across the water from? Supposedly it's one of the biggest depositories of occult knowledge outside of the Vatican.
No, because there's that one in California that's bigger.
Yeah, well, but it's, it's impressive. And,
well, I guess I would have to say, as far as I know, the P'nti consider the information that Cayce got from a connected collective consciousness source, and while he was human and fallible, a vast majority of it has panned out to be pretty damn accurate. And so, kind of like they were impressed with Tesla, they were also impressed with Casey.
Nice.
I don't know that I can say that the P'nti say that they were talking to Casey, but I can tell you that they tell us that P'nti were talking to Tesla.
That's pretty
Makes
awesome.
sense. Did you hear that?
Colorado Springs.
Did you hear that ARE Foundation? You owe the P'nti for like $5 now because you just got an endorsement.
So
they're gonna buy some. They're gonna buy some good stuff. But yeah.
You mentioned on Spooky Action that there's a treaty that ends 2019 or 2021.
2021.
Yeah,
So
2021.
what are the implications of that for the rest of Earth?
Well, all right. So we've got, according to the P'nti, more than, at least 32 star nations. I don't know if I can say more than that, but 32 star nations who have indicated an interest in participating in cultural and information exchange with Earth officially. And so that has to begin with an official first contact, and then an opening up of treaties and dialogue and information, etc., etc. But the star nations that visit our planet apparently know that the treaty that is signed currently, that official first contact could commence after that. And so they decided to plan their own.
What would the well, I guess, I don't know if you can really speak for the P'nti, but we got a lot of stories about different species of ETs involved in genetic experiments on humans. Abduction type scenario. You've heard of it.
Sure.
They're prevalent stories.
Their
So
origins may come from genetic manipulation.
what would the P'nti have anything to do with that? Is that these other star nations would these be rogue actors?
All right, so we hear several things from the P'nti as well as the other star nations. First of all, our Earth human DNA has been tweaked multiple times by multiple nations. Okay, so is it just one star nation at just one period or point in our history? Oh, heck no. All right. Do they still tweak? Do star nations still tweak our DNA? I think so, given what images that I see. Yes. Do the P'nti and various star nations tell us they come here, and the phrase that we hear most commonly is, quote, to exchange seeds, all right, unquote. Does that mean just seeds like you would see in a plant or a bush? No, I suspect that we have seeds.
So
Mammals have seeds.
Earth is like a giant brothel.
We call them eggs. The funny thing is, as long as the P'nti have been around, you asked earlier before the break about their interest in Earth and what are they getting out of this. The other thing culturally they tell us is their role here best translates as to gardeners of intellect. They see a sentient, indigenous people, nation, with potential, in this case us, and accentuate the positive in order to allow that nation to essentially bloom like flowers in a garden to its highest potential. So do they do long-term studies of worlds and how best to garden the intellect and help raise up a nation from a lesser mature state to a more mature consciousness state? Yeah. They're not the only nation interested in that either.
Well, I wish them the absolute best in that endeavor, because there's things like SpongeBob and Mumble Rap running around out here.
What are you going to say?
Well, the telepathy course was part of that guardian of intellect that began, because the more you understand telepathy and how it's communicated to you, the easier these first meetings with these individuals are going to be for common everyday folk. They're not wanting to sit down with governments in official first contact. They're wanting to sit down with people.
I like that approach. Governments are typically bastards in my experience.
Well, they sat down with them at some point if they have treaties with them.
Well, some did, but we don't know how that got initiated, to be honest. And so the very, very beginnings of that, I don't have the details on.
I mean, I would assume if they're all part of this, if all these star nations are part of this federation or council or whatever governing body it is, it would have to have been greenlit at some point, right? Or they would be acting outside of that, so they would be criminal.
Well, I would say yes, that there are those individual nations who supervise other nations to make sure that everybody's toeing the line, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, but, I mean, if government's inefficient here on Earth, then it's probably pretty inefficient in the universe at large as well. I mean,
I'm not going to disagree with that.
I'm trying to keep under tabs.
Well, agreed. And does riffraff slip through the cracks everywhere you are? Sure.
Seriously.
You can always find riffraff
Take
of
another
some
mushroom.
kind. I mean, honestly.
Heck, here in Virginia, our governor, our lieutenant governor, and our attorney general are all riffraff.
So we got another question from the chat, from Jared again. Have you heard anything about Teal'c's recent visits to the moon?
We know that he has had real serious meetings with the UMO. We know that there has been an attempt to correct a problem with another nation from one of the worlds in the Pleiadian area. We know that they're trying to make sure that the conflict between them out there does not come into our solar system. We hear from Teal'c that the spring equinox is kind of an important time frame for revealing things, and they're saying they think that whatever vehicles are constructed here by us, somebody's going to do a reveal around that time frame.
So
okay, they're giving it about 3 weeks.
So we might see some triangular shaped Air Force craft flying
no idea. Because they tell us that there is more than one group on our planet that's making interstellar craft right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
which one and who's doing what, and if it's more than one, that I don't know. But he says something's coming to a head.
Interesting.
A couple of questions about the P'nti planet itself. I was just wondering, is their atmosphere composition similar to ours? You told us about the water thing, right? How they have more fresh water than salt water.
Mm-hmm. They do. They tell us that we have an awful lot of nitrogen in our atmosphere as compared to them. Their oxygen levels are a little bit higher, a little less carbon dioxide. That balance.
How many moons do they have?
Oh, as far as I know, one.
Just like us.
As far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't...
Apart from the artificial ones.
Yeah, and you know what? Fair statement.
Yeah.
Fair statement.
How long is one of their years in, I guess, Earth days or Earth years?
I have that written down somewhere in my journal, but I don't keep those numbers in my head. It's longer than our year is.
Do they have seasons and tides and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Speaking of the moon, what about our moon? You think it's artificial?
It was constructed to go with our world. It was placed in orbit exactly.
Okay, so
What it was constructed out of and how long ago, I can't tell you.
Whether it rings like a bell or not, we don't know.
But they tell us we live on a designer planet with a designer moon.
Neat.
I mean, did you not wonder why it exactly covered the sun during eclipses?
No,
and doesn't spin.
I'm just
getting
your.
What are the odds, right?
Yeah, I'm just getting your opinion on it. Is all.
Let's see. What kind of star is the Zeta Reticuli? Is it like a yellowish main sequence star like our sun, or?
I don't know those kinds of details. I can tell you it's dimmer. I can tell you that our UV is much higher here than theirs is. They give me images that they are a little farther out, or in the spectrum.
Distance of separation between the
so
planets.
slightly longer year,
Yeah.
so slightly larger orbit, but the star itself, I'd have to honestly go back to the catalog and look. I don't know.
We got another question coming in. Is telepathy a prerequisite for admittance into the intergalactic government?
Boy, is it a prerequisite? All right. That's kind of like asking, should you learn to speak another country's language before you go visit that country? Okay. Would it help you? Yes, because you don't have to go through a translator then. You understand everything personally. The problem that comes into play is brain exhaustion, to be honest.
For unpracticed individuals.
Because if you haven't been dealing with telepathic communication for 8 hours, and your first communication lasts that long, your brain is not going to be used to that. Okay? It would be exhausting and physiologically stressful on your brain and your body to maintain that intense kind of communication for that long. You have to entrain your brain to get used to that level, just like you have to practice your vocal cords to sustain notes and sing for longer and longer periods of time or speak for longer and longer periods of time.
So, and I'm wondering now, what's the connection between telepathic communication and astral projection? Are those related disciplines ultimately?
Ultimately, yes.
Similar.
They have. You've got a couple of things going on. If you do astral projection, you have two choices. You can use the eyes of another species in order to look at a specific thing or person.
I never thought
All
of
right. That's fetch work. Study FETCH. Study your ancient magic. Okay. You're looking for fetch work. Seeing through the eyes of another is a trained discipline that even Earth humans can do. Okay. But the astral projection that you're talking about, of actually physically taking my physical body and projecting it to another location, that's a little bit different animal. Okay, that's a different skill set, different kind of projection work. You're not just looking through another person's eyes telepathically. You're projecting and manifesting something physical at a distant location. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I got
Go for it.
Do the P'nti have genders, and what is their reproductive process like?
Male, female. We've got one member of the staff that almost comes across as gender neutral. He's officially got genitalia like a guy, but comes across more neutral in the middle. Okay. Reproduction can be natural, but is not that way for 100% of the population. And so is there assisted reproduction? Yes, there is. And that's done in what they call sacred what was the phrase? Sacred birth houses?
Yeah, something
Sacred,
along, yeah.
The translation is sacred womb house.
Yeah.
Or sacred place of artificial wombs where fertilized eggs can then be brought to maturity before they go to their families or those who are raising them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh, they've recently invented, there's been advances in artificial wombs here on Earth. I saw they grew a sheep in one.
That wouldn't surprise
That
me.
doesn't
They've been
surprise
working on that since the 70s.
Yeah, which, I mean, and that would be a medical miracle if you would have, these babies that couldn't be carried to term, that could be kept alive in an artificial womb. That'd be awesome. And I have no doubt.
It starts from the very conception point.
Yeah.
So the conception point takes place in a sterile environment and is then brought on from that point.
The difference being, if you have a physical mother and a physical mother's body that carries a child, no matter what the species, there is a telepathic, psychic, spiritual, unseen interaction that goes on from growing fetus to baby during that process, okay, for mammals. When you have an external womb house where you raise these children from fertilized egg to ready to be born stage, if you don't have telepathic, nurturing guardians taking care of that sacred house, those individuals become isolated and alone because they're not physically connected with the body of a mother. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you then get a different kind of persona like you do with a species that lays individual eggs outside of a mother, like a bird.
For instance.
Or like a bird.
Like turtle.
Chicken, right.
So
It makes you want, but like the Dracos still lay eggs, don't they?
What? I don't know, man. I do have a question though. Follow up. You said not all of them. They reproduce in two separate ways. So what would be like the percentage? Like how many reproduce like we do, and how many reproduce in artificial wombs?
I would say at least, it depends on which sect and which culture, but at least 30% of the population struggles with natural reproduction.
Okay.
It's a high percentage for a population. If 30% of our population struggled with reproduction, I don't know that there'd be 8 billion people on the planet.
Right.
Good point.
Well, which brings me to my next question is about how many P'nti are on Earth?
all total,
Boy, I don't know the current count.
the last one I knew of was 1,200.
That sounds pretty close.
That's
I would say less than 1,500 on planet.
on planet.
If you're talking about actually on planet physically right now, 1,500 or less, that fluctuates. It's not always the same every day. That doesn't include P'nti and the rest of the solar system.
Right. Well, what about as a whole, as a race as a whole, like back home? I mean, do they number in the billions?
You mean across the galaxy?
Yeah, yeah.
Trillions, probably.
I'm not sure that I have ever heard a count from them. I know it's not just this galaxy because they tell us they have maps of other galaxies. So how many far and wide? I'd have no idea. I really don't.
How cool would that be to be able to go to Andromeda and then take pictures of our own Milky Way galaxy from over there and then come back and share those pictures?
That would be.
If anybody out there listening wants to ask a question, that would be the time. Coming up on the end of the show, so if you got something to ask, go ahead and put it in the chat now.
You mentioned 32 other star nations that were, considering coming forth. Who are some of the others that are considering coming out and announcing their presence to the world at large?
Well, all right. We're putting together that list, that illustrated list now.
Okay.
And so the goal in the next year and a half, 2 years, is to get the right spellings, the names of the peoples, the location where they're from, what they call themselves, and what they look like, or an accurate illustration of them, so that we've got an accurate guest list, if you will.
Gotcha.
Prior to the event. But we're in the process of creating that list of peoples now. We can tell you that the Uma will be there. We can tell you that the tall white Chelan people will be there. We can tell you that the Saurons that helped in Asia are going to be there. They look almost amphibian, frog-like skin. All right. We have the Orion Ea faction that arrived in 17 is planning on being there. We have a people down in South America that I don't know what to call, whose nose curves down at the end and has a slightly elongated skull, but not anything dramatic like you see in Egyptian hieroglyphics. So it's like we don't have names for all of these peoples. We know that there is there are a number of nations that look like us, whether they are Nordic or from somewhere else. We have and I just lost the name of the people. It'll come back to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're starting to put together an accurate list, and what we want to make doubly sure of is that we have the right spelling, the right people, and what they look like, where they're from, correctly before that ever goes out to the public. So that's what we're in the process of doing now.
Very cool. So keep an eye on it's officialfirstcontact.com, right?
Mm-hmm. It is. It is. And if you want to have your own CE5 experience, download the Telepathy 101 primer, follow their suggested protocols, and invite them.
I've got it on my phone. I've been brushing up.
All right.
Let me ask you something with the CE5 protocol. Can you specify who you're inviting, or is it just like you're opening the front door and whoever wanders in, wanders in?
No, you can invite somebody specific if you want. You can always try. You don't have anything to lose and everything to gain by trying, right?
Right. No, I was just wondering how it worked.
If you develop a friendship with somebody online, invite that person first. If you've ever had interaction with any extraterrestrial nation ever in your past, and that was a positive experience, invite that nation.
I definitely have missing time from when I was a kid.
Yeah?
There was, I saw it was like a large white light with a reddish light and a bluish light on either side of it.
Okay.
And I must have been probably about 7 years old. I remember I was playing a lot of Mega Man 3 at that point. And I don't know why I think it stands out because some of the stages had like stars and stuff in the background. And I was, in my room playing video games. It must have been about 7 o'clock at night. It was summer. The sun was still going down. I had the window open. And I saw this light, and I remember staring at it. And I was staring at it for what only felt like a few seconds. But when I, my attention broke from staring at it, I realized the thing was gone, and it was dark out, and I went back out into my house, and it was, to see what was going on. My parents were upstairs in bed, like they hadn't noticed the fact that I was staring out of the window for hours. And
wow.
It was like 2, 3 in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely had a chunk of missing time. Have you had any memories regarding that surface at all?
Not really. Not that concretely come together. I mean, I've had all sorts of dreams about, other planets and other places, but it's hard to tell if it's dreams or suppressed memories or what.
Well, the best thing that we can tell you is, 1, keep your discernment intact, keep your skepticism intact. And 2, start getting out something to write with and something to draw with, and here's why. You may, just in doodling about it, sketching about the edges of it, talking or writing down phrases or drawing out images that you remember or are connected with the edges of your experience. If you draw them out, you're engaging a different memory storage area of your brain akin to where you're storing dreams. And so you are more likely to get detail that you don't consciously remember by doodling and sketching than you do by trying to name nouns like writing out a sentence. So concentrate on the light and shadow and shapes first, and then go from there. See if you get any other details. You're looking for patterns.
I notice very tall buildings seem to be a pattern. Towers of some sort. There's a lot of that.
Let yourself doodle about them. You may find that other details come out that you don't consciously remember. Right. Give it a try.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to ask about, if your culture has been around for that long, what's their art like? What's their music like? What's their entertainment like?
Amazing.
What's their literature like?
Amazing. All right. So we have, and this is part of the fun of translating for them, is we get a chance to experience bits and pieces of their culture in sharing our culture with them. Okay. And so the very first time that Drudy explained a telepathic art sport that we don't have, she described going down to the Amazon where there are huge flocks of birds. And what she and her girlfriends do is they pick a flock and telepathically merge with the entire flock. And when it rises up to do its last flight of the night, they will work telepathically with the flock to create moving, undulating forms and shapes, images in the sky out of the entire flock of birds in flight.
That's pretty rad. Can the aquatic ones do it with fish?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. Nice. That's the other place that it's done on the aquatic worlds. And so that fly kiting in the fly is just absolutely astonishing, and she's shown us some examples of that. Our music, our dance is fun for them. Our percussion, our instrumentation, the harmonies that we employ. Because the P'nti don't sing, or you really don't want them to, are a cappella singing groups that harmonize, like Pentonics, or what was the group out of Soweto?
Ladysmith out of South Africa.
Right, Ladysmith. Those kinds of harmonious a cappella singing groups where you have many voices harmonize into one, they think is just amazing. Early on this past year, we had a member of the Grateful Dead community ask about all kinds of interests like this for them, and ended up donating almost the entire collection of the Grateful Dead, videos and all, to the P'nti. And they have since shared that back home, and many of them have become Deadhead fans.
That's awesome.
I'm totally serious, because that music is an improv that ebbs and flows with a telepathic merging of the people on stage. They get it.
Well, yeah, and there's definitely a common thread that runs between music and magic and telepathy and technology and vibration of everything in the universe as a whole. So
consciousness.
You should tell P'nti to check out the band I'm in. It's like the Grateful Dead, only it's noise.
Yeah?
Human-services.com.
We're a jam band, kind of like Grateful Dead, but it's noise.
Well, we'll have to check it out. We'll tell Radar.
They have a tendency to go up to Ontario and drop in on Kevin Estrella when he's playing.
Well, he invites them too.
Yeah. Well, they take a whole shipload of girls up there all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. He's got groupies. If you want them to visit you, invite them. But I would suggest you follow the protocols in the primer and be aware that if you don't spend a little time practicing and training your brain, any extended dialogue is going to be real hard because your brain will get exhausted too fast. And so you have to build up that stamina. So start practicing with each other, ping each other all the time.
All right, your invocation rituals might not hurt either.
One last question before the end of the show here. If you did invite the P'nti and they showed up, would they be naked?
Only if it's really, really hot where you are.
I mean, you always see, gray aliens depicted with no clothes on, so I gotta ask.
Well, okay.
We know that they also wear a skin-tight bodysuit that's got a feel of like neoprene or dolphin skin, because lady in Australia got a
Wookiee's friend, Sifu's spouse.
She got a hunk of fabric.
Got a hunk of one of their uniforms under her skin. It depends on the mission, and it depends on what they have to do. And if you're gonna go into the woods and collect samples and run through the briar patch, you don't want to be butt naked.
Yeah,
I mean, you just don't. So it's mission appropriate clothing.
Do they find Earth irritatingly warm because if they're from a colder planet, or?
No, it depends on where. It completely depends on the climate, and where they're doing their research.
What's a nice day on P'nti?
Pleasant. 80 some degrees.
Yeah, maximum 80s.
And
80 is hot.
80, 85 would be pleasantly warm.
It sounds nice. Similar atmospheric pressure to
ours? They have to adjust to our atmospheric pressure.
Their gravity is less too.
Well, yeah. They get around. They're real bouncy here. No, their gravity is more, hun, not less. Being they get here, they're lighter. You got it backwards.
So it's like us being on the moon. You can jump way higher and everything.
Yeah, they're real strong here. For little looking guys, they're real strong. They could pick you up, no problem.
Neat. I had a question about you're familiar with the Betty and Barney Hill incident. I remember hearing it was in Betty and Barney's Hill's testimony that there was a gray with human-looking eyes that appeared also, and I was just wondering.
You're talking about on the Barney Hill's regression?
Yeah. Are there any mission reports that says that they might have been present for something like that, or not? Well, not the Sandia crew, but somebody from P'nti.
As far as I know, someone from their system, yes. Whether or not they were P'nti or one of the cultures, that I can't tell you. There are several similar-looking cultures in that Zeta Reticuli area of the galaxy. And so, are they all interrelated and cousins? Yeah. Can I separate them out? I don't know who colonized where when. Gotcha. And so, I'm not convinced that the fifth planet orbiting Zeta Reticuli 2 is necessarily the only home world.
Gotcha.
And I don't know what makes me say that, because I've got another planet that looks different than that one that's also ancient feeling to them, that feels like home. So that strange puzzle piece we don't know where to put yet. So when we get things that seem to contradict something that they've already presented to us, we just keep gathering more information until it starts to make a whole lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Does their system have any big gas giants or ice giants like ours, or do they have any planet types like we don't have, like, say carbon planets, or petrol planets like Titan but bigger? What's their solar system's geography like?
We've never. Have you ever asked them?
No, I haven't gone into much detail about it.
I can tell you that
their fuel sources are not anything we're familiar with.
I can tell you that farther out in their solar system, yes, there are larger worlds like our gas giants. I can tell you that those larger worlds, whoever's over on the desk says they have upended rings, meaning
like Uranus.
Yes, thank you. All right, and that habitable moons exist there as well.
Oh, cool.
But nobody likes to go there and be stationed there because it's awful damn cold. I mean, honestly, there's a preference as to where do you get to go. Everybody wants to come here. It's a water world on the edge of its official first contact. How much more fun can you get? Instead of, oh, let's go to the ice giant's moon and freeze our butts off. I mean, where would you want to go?
I mean, I do want to go visit the Great North here at some point, but only to see the auroras. I've never actually seen one in real life.
They're awesome. I have only seen them a couple of times in my life, but yeah. If you get onto YouTube, you can hear what they sound like.
Yeah, I've heard them. I want to hear it.
Love that. Yeah, I think that's just amazing. So, anything else, gentlemen? I know that you were talking about wrapping up at the top of the hour here, and we're kind of there.
Looks like we've got no more questions coming in on YouTube, so I think we're safe to officially call it. Thanks
All right.
for coming on. Really appreciate it. Sue, do you got any websites or anything you'd like to give out?
If people want to download the Telepathy 101 primer and learn how to invite the P'nti for a visit, you can learn about them directly and have your own conversations. We have people in more than a dozen countries now who are doing that successfully and continuing to do it and gathering evidence. You can see that evidence on officialfirstcontact.com on the evidence page, and you can read about why they're here. They have written about it, and there are a number of free documents there. If you want to search anything they've ever said, you can search the Twitter archives. Very cool. If you want to ask them questions live, go to @SandiaWisdom on Twitter, and there also is now a Friends of the Sandia Mountain Information Station Crew fan page on Facebook.
Very cool. Well, I hope they'll monitor this broadcast too, and a big hi to everybody out there, and
all right, thank you, gentlemen, for having us on, and you take care.
You too.
All right.
Good night.
I've had a lot of fun. You guys take care.
All right, bye-bye.
So, you gotta cut the... Sorry, we're still training here, guys. We almost got it. So, God.